Like they call it the doghouse.
Okay, due to storage issues, I have not uploaded on YouTube for a while and have not been able to comment on the latest boxing and mixed martial arts news on YouTube anyway. On my Twitter, the Doghouse, you'll see it. I'm always speaking about what's going on in the world of combat sport, but yeah, since I last uploaded, my last video was I think about 2 months ago, about talking about Crawford and Canelo, but since then, a lot has happened. We have had Anthony Joshua fighting Francis Ngannou and making short work of him. We've had UFC 300 that just went on about a few weeks ago, which was relatively entertaining. And the big one that has happened fairly recently is we saw Ryan Garcia take on Devin Haney last weekend, which was, I think, for the last few weeks, definitely the more hyped fight recently. And in a few weeks, we've got Usyk and Fury. So a lot going on. But I feel like this is a good place to start with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. And what I want to speak about today is I want to speak about Devin Haney and why I feel that Devin Haney has a little bit of an identity crisis going on in the ring and out the ring. But I will go into why I think this. So going into the fight, I initially did think that Haney would win the fight, and I was very consistent on this. It never actually changed until we got to about the Thursday or Friday before the fight, and something in my brain was just telling me that it seems like this is all set up for Ryan Garcia to pull off. Ryan Garcia was seemingly going through a manic episode and losing his mind. Me personally, I'm never one who believes just what I see. I always feel I need to see more evidence, or I need to know what's going on to really get a clear idea. Like, I don't know Ryan Garcia. If I knew him and I knew he was going through this crazy stuff, then I would draw the conclusion that he was going through a crazy episode. But there's also, I thought, a good chance that he was just making the whole thing up and trying to act crazy, which it seemingly kind of looked like that's what ended up happening. But I'm a bit more in the middle. I don't think that he made it up, but I also don't think he's as crazy. Well, crazy is actually the right word. I don't think he was as OTT and as going crazy as people made out to be. I still use crazy again. I don't know what word I can use. But I don't think he was going for a breakdown. I just think that he was living a certain type of lifestyle, and I think he felt to promote the fight, he had to really turn it up a notch. And he said himself he was drinking before the fight, and I believe him. And some fighters, they do actually, that is a way of getting by. That's what John Jones obviously does, and it's what a few people do. So I'm not actually that particularly surprised by it. However, something told me that Ryan would win the fight. If you look, and I'm not just saying this now, people can check my Twitter, I said this, that I felt like Haney should win the fight, but something was telling me that Ryan was going to get it done. It felt all set up for him to get the victory, because it's almost as if he has nothing to lose, because everybody seems to think he's going through a mental breakdown and, winning the fight. I mean, people, because of the Tank fight, almost forget Ryan Garcia is one of the best fighters in his division. He has been boxing from a very, very young age, and he is somebody who is in the class of a Haney, a Tank, a Shakur, a Tiafimo, those type of fighters. So I think he's definitely up there, and I feel against Tank, don't get me wrong, he was weight drained, but Tank took his best weapon away from him. But I feel like that fight was a good learning curve, because it allowed him to go away, regroup, and sort of just reprogram himself, get with Derek James, and almost develop this newer style. Because I don't think he's actually fighting the exact same way he was before. I think he's making some adjustments with the shoulder roll, which still looks a little bit wrong. But regardless, I still feel Ryan is making the right steps. But we're not talking about Ryan today. We're talking about Devin Haney. Devin Haney is, to a lot of people, up there as the pound for pound. Not the best, but one of the best fighters in boxing today. He is a very good boxer, fantastic jab, physically very big. Has the body, I'd say, of almost a welterweight at the moment. He is somebody who's shown a lot of good solid fundamentals. He was, 15-0, I think, having a lot of fights in Mexico beforehand. Obviously, I think he was 31-0 going into the Garcia fight. Undisputed at such a young age, at 135, beating Lomachenko in an asterisk, and beat Kambosos twice, beat Linares. He's shown a lot in his career so far at such a young age. But if you know me, look at what I've said about Haney for a long time. I always felt Haney was very good. But I've always said there is something about the way Haney always used to fight where you feel as if he could get knocked out at any second. Now, somebody who's quite similar to Haney is Shakur Stevenson in the way he fights. Two slick boxers, both very good fundamentally. But the difference with Shakur is the way Shakur fights, you can't touch him. Whereas Haney, you can touch him. He always used to get hit with a lot of shots in and around the guard. Through the middle, he would get hit sometimes as well with straight shots. So there was always points where you could get Haney. But to me, I never really felt like Haney was as good, to be honest, as a lot of these other guys. And I think Haney's a very good fighter, but I just think he's not. To me, I don't rate him above Tank or Shakur. I don't know, him and Teofimo is probably neck and neck for me. Because Teofimo is very good, he just is very selective of who he performs well against for whatever reason. When he's up against average opposition, he performs average. But if he's up against elite opposition, he performs to a very high level. It's just the way Teofimo operates. But I always felt, though, that he should have been better than Ryan. But Ryan Garcia actually exposed a very big flaw in Devin Haney's armor and a big chink. And it's something that I always felt was there with Haney, but this fight almost confirmed it to me. Devin Haney has a very weird tendency to always kind of stay in the pocket a bit too long, and the reason that is I think he backs himself a bit more than he actually should. He hasn't got power, we know that, but we know he has the skill and the solid fundamentals, and this is where I feel the identity crisis comes in. And I'm going to break it down into 3 little steps, or 3 sort of sub points here. The first one is his skill in the ring. Now, Haney, I've explained, fantastic boxer, brilliant off the back foot, can fight on the front foot. His jab is probably up there as one of the best in boxing, if not the best. There aren't many fighters who have the punch variety that Haney does. He has a, right uppercut, left uppercut, throws solid hooks, straight shots. Yeah, he has everything, Haney. It's not as if there's a one specific shot that he throws and that's it, or he's actually repetitive. Like, for example, Garcia is very reliant on the left hook, but you rarely ever see Ryan throw like a left uppercut or go throw these shots to the body. He's very much has a certain sort of move set, if you want to put it in video game terms almost. Whereas Haney, he's got everything, and he's so well balanced, and I think that's why a lot of people felt like he would run over Ryan. But there is an issue with Haney, and that issue is, I think Haney seems to think that he actually does hit hard, and I've felt this for a while. Devin Haney has an identity crisis in the ring in a huge way. If you look at the Linares fight, Devin Haney dominated that fight, but he was throwing everything at Linares to try and hurt him and get him out of it, and he couldn't do it. And that resulted, I forget what round it was, but that resulted in Linares wobbling him with a left hook, which is obviously the same shot that Ryan hurt him with. And what Haney did in that fight, he tried to stay in the pocket a bit more and bang it out with Linares, and he learned he's not made out for that. You can't do that. That's not his game. His game is staying on the outside, being slick and sticking and moving. But again, I don't think Haney actually figured this out, because then he fought Lomachenko, and the same thing happened. Lomachenko was able to catch him. Haney's just fortunate Lomachenko is not a big hitter. And these guys, Linares, Lomachenko, are much smaller than Haney. You do that against a guy such as Ryan Garcia, and we saw what happened. You got wobbled, you got hurt, you got dropped 3 times. Devin Haney I feel like he almost doesn't know what he wants to be. He doesn't know, do you want to be this slick boxer who's always, trying to perfect his craft, a little bit like Floyd? Because if that's the case, you got to learn what you're good at. Floyd never tried to be anything that he wasn't. Devin Haney is trying to be this. It's almost like he's stuck in the middle. He doesn't want to be almost a completely slick boxer, but he doesn't want to be a reckless fighter either. But which is it? You've got to pick. He's too indecisive, and because of that, you see him a lot of times in fights getting caught. And I always felt what was going to happen against Garcia was going to happen anyway, because the way he fights, it just doesn't. It looks like he's vulnerable all the time. So that, to me, was a big thing. Haney in the fight against Garcia, for whatever reason, everybody knows Ryan's best punch is the left hook. Haney decided to stay in the pocket and try and bang it out rather than actually staying away from the left hook. He almost welcomed it, and because of that, he got hurt so many times and really got a bad beatdown, especially in the latter part of the fight. So Haney really doesn't know, I think, if he wants to be this knockout artist or be a slick boxer. It's pretty clear what he should do because he hasn't got the power of a knockout artist. But, you know, you could rip the body. You can sort of be like Errol Spence is an example of somebody who doesn't hit. Like, he hits hard, but he doesn't hit crazy hard where you can put you out one shot. It's a cumulative effect of the punches. You could do that, but again, the way Haney fights, he also is like so slick and trying to stay on the outside. It's like, what do you want to be? Do you want to be this aggressive fighter, or do you want to be a slick boxer on the outside? You've got to pick one. You can't go back and forth between both styles, because eventually you're going to come up against the elite guys. Ryan Garcia, for example, knows what he is. Tank knows what he is. Shakur knows what he is. These guys all know what their style is. They don't try to be anything else. It's a little bit like when Anthony Joshua tried to, pick up the sweet science and was trying to be all slick in the ring, and eventually fought a guy in Usyk who knew what he was, and eventually just picked him apart because of it. And it's only now he's got a trainer now, Joshua, who's bringing out the best of his skill set. Haney needs to get into his head that he is not this crazy come forward guy who can pick you apart and break you down and knock you out. What you are is a slick boxer on the outside. Amazing jab, hit and don't get hit. That's what you are. You don't need to try and be anything else. You don't need to be something you're not. And I think this is something he struggled with for a while, and this fight really exposed that. But that isn't the only thing he's got an identity crisis on. He has an identity crisis, and this is a big thing for me, almost in his boxing persona. Devin Haney, in this last year, and I'll be honest, I'm not really someone who pays attention to these boxing personas and how people present themselves, but it's been kind of annoying me, him, his dad especially. Bill Haney, because he's essentially Devin's mouthpiece at times, was talking about how in this fight that Devin was going to put Ryan in a hospital and going to badly hurt him, and he was going to really put a crazy beatdown on him. Right, I mean this in a respectful way, because Haney's an amazing fighter and he could mess your average person up. Who do these people in Haney's team think that he is? He is not this crazy bad guy who's going to hurt you like a Teofimo, like a Deontay Wilder, like a Tank, like this. He's a on the back foot boxer. He doesn't try to go out. He doesn't knock people out. He doesn't hurt people. You get a little bit of bruising after the Haney fight maybe, but other than that, you're not going to really walk out with much damage, because it's the way he fights, and that's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know why. It's almost as if they know that Haney's style isn't marketable, so they try to market him in a different way. But he just hasn't got that. What you say and what he does is two different things. And even when, even like the way he dresses a little bit, Haney, and the way he speaks, is trying to come across as somebody who he's not. And I'll explain this in my third sub point here, but with Haney, they're trying to come across like he's some ruthless killer. Devin Haney is a slick boxer. He fights like that. Them almost trying to gas him up and make him into this guy may have actually got in his head a little bit and made him think that Garcia was easier than he was. Because I do think that Bill, Devin all thought that round was going to be a walkover and that Haney was going to go in there and just dominate him. But you saw, Haney, you're not that guy. You're not this killer. You are a very, very good boxer. That's it. You don't have to try and pretend to be this crazy guy like a Deontay Wilder who's going to have a body on his record. Just be yourself. And this is something that I feel like he doesn't do a lot. He almost tries to pretend and overact like he's this crazy guy. You see him what he's wearing a lot of the times. It's very weird. And this comes to my third point. A few years ago, I want to say about 2019, 2020 maybe, something like that. I remember I came across a video of Haney think he was giving money to homeless people. And Devin Haney always had this image of being this squeaky clean guy who never really got into trouble. If you ever looked at him outside the ring, he never was in a fight or never had any. I don't know what. I don't really pay attention to relationship issues, but there's nothing crazy about that. And he was very much just your typical good kid almost who just got on with it. He's obviously Muslim. He talks a lot about his religion. He doesn't go crazy, or didn't feel like he was going crazy. But recently, these last few years, he started wearing these crazy chains. He started obviously talking like I said before, like he was some bad guy who was gonna hurt people. Devin's a good guy. You don't need to act, like I said, like you're this crazy guy who you're not. Ultimately, this persona changed, and now Devin's trying to come across as this sort of flamboyant, flashy guy, when in reality, it's not who he is, right? And it's almost as if he's left that good guy image behind and now trying to paint out, like I said, like he's this, I don't know, this guy who has a real sort of vigorous, aggressive, like, I don't know, almost like what Floyd was, but just not as loud as Floyd. But he just talks a lot. He's really trying to be this guy who I think he's got an image, and I feel as if he's almost lost a little bit of who he is, Devin Haney, and because of that, I think he really needs to discover what he is and who he is, because this is going to be an issue if he fights Tank, if he fights Teofimo, or if he fights Shakur. Because, you know, you can lose to these guys, but Haney has got the capability of beating all of these guys, but I just don't think he beats any of them. And that's the honest truth. Ryan was the one guy I thought he would beat. And I think one of the main culprits of this is that I just think he almost is trying too much. He doesn't know what he wants to be. He doesn't know if he wants to be this nice, humble kid, or does he want to be this flashy, arrogant sort of guy? Do you want to be this slick boxer, or do you want to be this aggressive, come forward fighter? Because you've got to pick. You can't be both. Because he's both, he's gone back and forth. From a persona point of view, I think it turns people off. And from a boxing point of view, you either get boring fights like you saw in Haney's career, or you get fights like the other night where you get dominated and battered because you thought you were something you weren't. I think you just have to pick, because I think Haney can fight in an entertaining way, but he has to discover his own way. He can't constantly be trying to go back and forth from being aggressive to being defensive. And I think even his in-ring persona, I just feel like it would help if he was just himself. I feel like Ryan, Tank, Shakur, I'm referencing all these guys because there's guys in and around him. They're all just themselves. I don't actually feel like they're ever trying to be something they're not. And I feel like when you're almost putting up an act, it's almost as if you have to act harder to do that. And I feel like because Haney hasn't got like I said, his style isn't very exciting. He's not very marketable, so they're trying to make him that. But I feel like it's damaging his image. And I think in the ring, I feel like it's actually damaged his career, I think, because now he has a loss on his record to a guy who, realistically, he should have actually beaten. Because Ryan, whilst he performed well, it wasn't as if he put in a once-in-a-lifetime performance. It was an average Ryan Garcia performance, but the guy just did not know how to adjust in the fight. And to me, Haney's got a lot of work to do, and I think he's got a lot more work than he thinks, and a lot of people think. I'll be honest, I think he was good. I never thought he was anywhere near as good as a lot of people in his team, and a lot of people made him out to be. But I'm sure he'll be back. But I just think the identity crisis, he needs to really fix. He needs to find out and actually figure out in himself who he wants to be. Because to me, going back and forth between trying to be this brash guy and trying to be this humble kid, it's just not working for me. And I don't think it's going to help him. It doesn't help his image. And I feel like that has had an effect on his style, because he doesn't know if he wants to be this slick boxer or if he wants to be this crazy guy who's trying to kill people and knock people out in there. You haven't got the power for it. You need to know who you are, what you're good at. And I think once he figures that out, I think we may then see the best of Devin Haney. But just my thoughts though on Haney and his little situation. But let us know what you think in the comments. And yeah, until next time.